Welcome. I'm Beth Stickney, the Executive Director of MeBIC, the Maine Business Immigration Coalition. On behalf of ABIC, the American Business Immigration Coalition, and MeBIC, welcome to Growing Maine, Bipartisan Immigration Solutions 2021. MeBIC is Maine's only resource dedicated to providing information, education, and advocacy on immigration and related issues for and from the business and economic perspective. ABIC promotes common sense immigration reform that advances economic competitiveness, provides companies with both the high-skilled and low-skilled talent they need, and allows the integration of immigrants into our economy as consumers, workers, entrepreneurs, and citizens. We're here today because the United States urgently needs Congress to act now on federal immigration reform. The last time Congress updated our permanent residency or temporary work visa laws was in 1990. Think of all that's changed since then. To compete for the global talent we need to remain innovative and economically strong, we need Maine's congressional delegation to lead the charge for common sense bipartisan immigration reforms. The first step is to make sure we keep the hardworking people who are already here, but who have no path to permanent residency. The House of Representatives has already passed the American Dream and Promise Act and the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, which will do just that. The ball is now in the Senate's court to act on these bills' Senate counterparts: the bipartisan Durbin-Graham Dream Act, the Crapo-Bennett version of the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, and the Secure Act. Together, these bills would give a path to permanent status to about 4 million people who are already part of our communities and workforce, whom we can't afford to lose. In a minute, you'll hear from many of Maine's leading voices representing business, civic, education, and immigrant interests about why they hope Maine senators will lead the charge for bipartisan immigration reform. We're so grateful for their participation and we'll introduce each of them in turn. But first, I'd like to welcome the Most Reverend Robert Dealey, Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Portland, who will give an invocation and remarks. Bishop Dealey.
Thank you, Beth. Good afternoon. It's a privilege really to be with you today. I want to thank the Maine Business Immigration Coalition for putting this gathering together and for always recognizing the value of our dear brothers and sisters, the immigrants in our communities, and promoting their stories, their importance, and their dignity. And so as requested, I'm going to begin with a prayer and then I have some comments to make. Merciful God, we pray to you for all the men, women, and children who have left their homeland for America in search of a better life. May each one be known, loved, and cherished as valued members of the communities in which they live. May they always find a place of safety and hope where they can live in freedom, in dignity, and in peace. May we share with them the blessings that we have received from your hand and recognize that together as one human family, we are all immigrants, journeying in hope to you, our true home, where we will be at peace and safe in your embrace. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you again for the opportunity to be with you today. The Catholic Church has always responded to Christ's call for us to welcome the stranger among us. It is our conviction that in this encounter with the immigrant, the migrant, and the refugee, we encounter Christ himself, because human dignity is grounded in our very reality. When evaluating immigration policy issues, it is necessary that we address the human dignity of the immigrants and the refugees who are seeking refuge and a better life, and respect and recognize due process and human rights. Our country, the United States, has a moral obligation to treat the stranger as we would treat Christ himself. What is truly needed is a conversion of minds and hearts, bringing us into communion and solidarity with diverse newcomers and entreating us to find new and meaningful ways to welcome our immigrant sisters and brothers into our parishes, schools, and communities. I want to thank in a special way Catholic Charities Maine, particularly in their refugee and immigration services, for its effort in welcoming the stranger and ensuring that the dignity of every human person is protected. So I encourage anyone listening to reach out to Catholic Charities and learn of the many ways in which you can assist immigration services in Maine as they help individuals and families, many of whom have fled from violence, seeking compassion and care, so that they might never become victims again. I thank you for the work that you're doing, for the attention you're paying to these wonderful people, and to the care that you give to our own community by seeing that it has a future in the work and in the effort of the immigrants among us. God bless you all.
Thank you, Bishop. My name is David Barber, and I am the former CEO of Barber Foods, board president of the Maine Business Immigrant Coalition, and co-chair of American Business Immigration Coalition. So I wanted to share a couple of thoughts about why I joined MeBIC and ABIC as a business leader. Since the 70s, Barber Foods has welcomed immigrants from many different countries around the world. At our height, we had people from 53 different nations, and imagine that in Portland, Maine. And the stories of some of these people are truly amazing. They've shared with us their travels from escaping their countries or just leaving because there's no opportunity. But whatever their story, how they got here is a trial that none of us could ever imagine. When we set up a process and an ability to get those folks productive and integrated into communities, we all won. For Barber Foods, they added to our culture, our mindset, and our productivity by bringing a different perspective as to how we do things. So as time went on and we realized the struggles of many of these immigrant communities, it really emphasized the need for somebody like me to get involved, to be a business leader and to get involved in the process, because it's not going to happen. As we've seen, it just doesn't happen all by itself with our elected officials. The business community has to be involved. So the time is now. Senator Collins and King, we're looking for you to help lead the way for a bipartisan deal that includes the Durbin-Graham DREAM Act, the Crapo-Bennett Senate companion bill to the Farm Worker Modernization Act, and to become a co-sponsor for the Secure Act. You know, it is high time for us to recognize the contribution of immigrants and really to understand what Maine's economy and future is all about. Being the oldest state in the nation doesn't bode well for many of the people that produce products here. And the window is closing on a bipartisan deal. With your support, it can be done. We need action. Today, you'll be hearing remarks from Maine's entire congressional delegation, and everyone understands the need of the urgency for making a bipartisan, common sense immigration solutions coming together now. First, it's my privilege to introduce a message from Senator Susan Collins.
Thank you for inviting me to participate in your important discussion today. We should be able to identify bipartisan immigration solutions. Here are some of my goals for immigration reform. Congress should recognize the vital contributions that immigrants make to our economy and our communities. We should treat dreamers compassionately, and we should secure our border so that drug traffickers and smugglers are unable to continue exploiting vulnerable families and children. I share your belief that it is not fair to penalize an individual who was brought to the United States illegally at a very young age, as long as that person has a clean criminal record. Indeed, I have met with many dreamers, including Mainers, who have grown up in our state and have known no other country as their home. I well remember meeting a USM student born in Central America whose parents had brought him to our country at the age of 4. He had no idea that he was not a Maine native until he was about to apply for his driver's license. Only then did his parents tell him. It would be cruel to send him back to Honduras. I've long supported legislation to protect these individuals, including bipartisan legislation that I authored with Senator King that received 54 votes in the Senate a few years ago. Although I'm disappointed that our bill did not become law, I've not given up hope. I'm currently part of a bipartisan working group led by Senator Dick Durbin that is seeking to address issues associated with dreamers, farm workers, and other immigrant populations. We're also working to strengthen our border security and reform our system for adjudicating asylum claims. In addition, we must expand the H-2B visa program. It is vital to our hospitality sector and gives returning workers an opportunity to better care for their families in their native lands. The crisis at the southern border, which I visited in March, makes reforming our immigration laws more difficult, but I will continue to work to get sensible reforms passed. Thank you for your efforts as well.
Thank you, Senator Collins. We really appreciate your common sense immigration solutions that we're discussing today and your leadership in pursuit of a bipartisan deal. Next, I'm pleased to welcome Gail Keiser, Chief of Staff to Senator Angus King, Scarborough office, to share his remarks on immigration.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Gail Keiser, and I'm Senator King's regional representative for Cumberland County. I'm here today to read a statement on his behalf. It begins. First of all, I would like to thank the Maine Business Immigration Coalition for gathering us and for all of your work on behalf of our state. Your voice and efforts are deeply appreciated, and I apologize that I am unable to join you in person for this very important discussion. I strongly agree with MeBIC's mission to recognize the immense contributions of immigrants to our state and our economy. Immigration brings new ideas and new energy to communities across the country. And in an aging state like Maine, immigrants play a vital role in spurring economic growth. But as Congress remains deadlocked on a much needed comprehensive immigration reform, too many of the immigrants that strengthen our communities are left in limbo. It is critical that we break this logjam and find solutions. There are many bills currently under consideration by Congress to achieve this goal, including at least 3 supported by MeBIC: the DREAM Act, the SECURE Act, and the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. I am generally supportive of the goals of each bill, which would help bring certainty to many of Maine's immigrant workers. In fact, I have voted for the DREAM Act in the past. At the same time, I've long believed that in legislation, as in most things, execution is just as important as vision. As these bills continue to make their way through the legislative process, I will study the language closely to ensure that the legislative text matches the intent and will serve Maine's businesses and immigrant populations in the best way possible. As I do that, I hope you'll stay in touch with my office, sharing your business's experiences and stories of why you support or don't support the legislation in its current form. I want to close by once again thanking you, each of you, for all that you do to strengthen our communities and build a stronger Maine. I look forward to working alongside you in the weeks and months ahead to find solutions that improve our state, and I hope to see you all in person soon.
Thanks for your presence today, Gail, and thank you, Senator King, for your support and leadership. Next, it's my honor to introduce a message from Representative Shelley Pingree.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Shelley Pingree, and in March, I was very proud to vote for H.R. 6, the America Dream and Promise Act. That will extend the opportunity of citizenship to so many of our friends, our neighbors, people who live in our community. I'm very pleased that DACA has been integral in making sure that more than 640,000 Dreamers are able to live, work, and thrive here. But now that the House has passed this, the Senate needs to make this law. There is no reason not to allow everybody this opportunity. We're a nation of immigrants. I'm proud that my grandfather was an immigrant and gave prosperity and opportunities to our family, and we're still here today. Let's make sure we do that for all of the Dreamers in this country. Thank you.
Thank you for your support and leadership, Representative Pingree. Next, I'm pleased to introduce Eric Cantor, Legislative Director for Representative Jared Golden.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I am going to read just a short statement from Congressman Golden, who wishes he could be here today, but I will read this on his behalf. The United States is the only country Dreamers have ever known. Almost 1,000 have served in our armed forces. They pay billions of dollars in taxes each year and contribute to our local economies. Dreamers deserve the security of legal status and the opportunity to earn citizenship. Many members of Congress from both parties and in both the House and the Senate have long said that they support a legislative fix for the Dreamers. It's time to deliver a solution and pass H.R. 6, the American Dream and Promise Act, into law, rather than let this continue to become one of several ongoing biannual congressional failures. I hope that the Senate will take up and pass H.R. 6 or offer a conference with the House to address these issues in this Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Representative Golden. It's now my pleasure to introduce Angela Okafor, the first immigrant and first person of color to serve on Bangor's City Council, as well as a small business owner and attorney.
Thank you, David. It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon, and thank you for everybody that made this happen. So originally, I'm from Nigeria. I moved here in 2007-8 because my husband got a job. He got a H-1B, which brought us, so I was a H-4. So then, as a H-4, I could only live in America, but I couldn't work. And, you know, that period was a very horrible, depressing, frustrating time for me. So, and in my work currently, I interact with a lot of immigrants. I'm an immigration attorney, and at my store, people come seeking for help or connections or so many things. So I ran into a lady that is after I have gotten my green card and was able to seek employment. I ran into a lady who, she came on about the same kind of visa. She couldn't work, but she could live. And from her story, because she was at home and couldn't work and was 100% dependent on her husband, guess what started to happen? Domestic abuse, because she couldn't have her own financial independence. So it occurred to me that I was pretty much fortunate. Not that it was all rosy for me, but I had it easier than so many other people. So this act, you know, being able to pass, I'm calling on Senators Collins and King and Pingree and Jared Golden to please support this act, because it's not just about businesses. Personally, right now, I have gotten my green card. I'm a citizen, which was what enabled me to run for city council. I have an international market. I own a law practice. I have 3 of my kids, you can see one peeping from here, who are in school here. And my husband himself, he has 2 businesses, 2 pharmacy businesses in down east of Maine. So it's this is very important because it's not just that we come and we struggle and we have that perseverance, but most of us, where we come from, we have that hunger to not give up, to want to do more, to not just settle. So this is something that is very, very important and needed in the state of Maine to be able to move our economy further, and also not just attracting and keeping people here, but to also keep them safe, especially from domestic abuse, in light of being able to approve people to come, not just to come and stay, but their spouses and their children to be able to seek employment. And it helps with family unification against family disintegration. Thank you. Bye.
Hi, it's now my pleasure to introduce Karen Durdag, who is President and COO of GWI, Great Works Internet.
Hello, I'm Kerem Durdag, new Mainer, Turkish and Pakistani immigrant, and fortunate enough to be the President and CEO of GWI, bringing high-speed broadband internet to all of Maine. So for the last 20 years, I have endeavored to be part of the economic development fabric of Maine by creating, running, and growing companies. I am an enthusiastic graduate of the EAD H-1B green card and naturalization process, just like Angela. So for me, inclusion, diversity, and equity are the North Stars of my life. I, to my core, believe that they should be the same for Maine and the entire country. The future of Maine is directly dependent on our ability to welcome and root and sustain and grow the communities that comprise of our immigrant brothers and sisters. So I implore the congressional delegation, Senator Collins, Senator King, Congressman Pingree, Congressman Jared, pass the DREAM Act, the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, and the SECURE Act. Just pass it. Our oxygen of capability and capacity to address the bridging of the economic divide, for the absolute necessity to create economic prosperity for all, and for us as Mainers to be part of the 21st century global economy, it's predicated upon Maine accessing the talents of the immigrants. Providing the pathway for a society that includes us all. We have to do this, and we have to be brave enough to say we are us. That we are us. I'm part of you as much as you are part of me, and I'm an American. So these legislative efforts are an anchor point for our society to be us. It's our moral, financial, ethical, and societal obligation and necessity. I deeply and soulfully encourage everyone to support these initiatives. Thank you.
Next up, we'll be joined by Javier Botana, who is the Superintendent of Portland Public Schools.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon. My name is Javier Botana. I'm the superintendent of the Portland Public Schools, Maine's largest school district, serving close to 7,000 students in grades pre-kindergarten through 12, and an additional 4,000 adults in our adult education program. Nearly 1/3 of our students come from a non-English home background, and 1/4 are English language learners. Part of the value proposition of a Portland Public Schools education is that every day students sit side by side with other students whose life experiences are vastly different from theirs. They challenge each other, learn to see the world through the eyes of those who are different from them, and in the process, learn to see the world with all of its complexities and nuance. As a result, our students are better equipped to enter the next phase of their lives, whether it be college or work or service to this country's armed forces. The learning is uniform for all of our students, yet what they're able to do with it varies greatly based on circumstances beyond their control, delimited by their immigration status. Our Portland Public Schools staff works tirelessly to help all of our students be prepared and empowered for that next step. But time and again, these efforts run into the reality that for many of our students, access to college, to work, or even service to this country is limited by their immigration status. My family brought me to this country from Cuba when I was 3 years old. As refugees from a communist-controlled country 90 miles from the US during the Cold War, we were given every advantage and support. When we arrived in Chicago, we had housing. My mother, who spoke English, had a job, and my father was enrolled in adult education to learn English. We saw the generosity of this country and knew we needed to pay it back. And I believe that we have, just as immigrants and refugees have for as far back as anyone can remember. For almost 40 years, I've worked in communities where students with backgrounds like mine are a significant portion of the population. Over the years, I've worked with thousands of these students who were brought to this country by parents who were desperate to find a place where their children could succeed. And it's never been lost on me that in too many cases, the timing or the country that they came from dictated their reception. It's never been lost on me that had I been born a few hundred miles up the Caribbean in Haiti, my experiences would have been significantly different from what they've been. So I urge Senators Collin and Senator King to please sign on to the Durbin-Graham DREAM Act and the Secure Act for families under TPS. My experience and the experiences of so many people coming to this country in similar circumstances is evidence that investing in immigrants is smart public policy. Maine needs your leadership. Maine needs immigrants to grow. Please hear us today.
And I'll now turn it over to Paul Bolin, who is the Chief Human Resources Officer at Northern Light Health. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to, on behalf of larger employers, note some of the impacts that we have with our workforce currently in Maine. Northern Light Health has over 12,000 employees statewide. We currently have 1,500 posted open positions. We know with the demographics of Maine, the only age group in our current workforce that's increasing in size is the 65-year and older demographic. We're not going to grow our way out of this with our existing population. We need to attract and retain people to the state of Maine, and that includes a significant attraction from immigrant workers coming to Maine and welcoming them into our communities. I urge you to make sure that we're able to care for our citizens throughout the state going forward. And in doing so, we'll need additional workforce to do that. And so Senators Collins and King, I certainly encourage you to continue your wonderful work to support this bipartisan legislation.
And also in the medical field, introducing Lori Lundis Dwyer of Penobscot Community Healthcare.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here, and so many have spoken so eloquently about the need, the economic imperative, and the moral imperative for these bills. I'd like to speak, like Paul has, specifically to the healthcare industry and our needs in the healthcare industry. So I'm president and CEO of PCHC and formerly a practicing attorney, a high school teacher, and a community college teacher. I also previously was the board chair of ILAP and a pro bono attorney for the Immigrant Legal Advocacy Project. So I've had really close personal and professional and really deeply impactful experience with the issue of immigration in Maine and the challenges those folks attempting to immigrate and contribute to our state face. It's important to me, it's important to PCHC, it's important to the state that we pay attention to these three bills and pass this legislation. So PCHC serves about 65,000 patients in 3 counties in the 2nd District in Maine. We provide integrated primary care, special attention to vulnerable populations, and the community and social conditions that prevent people from reaching their full potential. We believe access to healthcare is a matter of social justice, and we live out that mission every day. We need people to be able to live out our mission. We specifically need to expand our workforce. We employ currently over 800 people and continue to grow year over year. We add new job titles, new job roles, and our numbers grow. We currently have over 80 positions, and it becomes harder and harder to fill them as time goes on. In fact, we've quadrupled our investment in recruitment functions over the past 3 years, now approaching upwards of $1 million in investment in just recruiting in order to be able to find the workers that we need to provide services. 75% of our physicians are at or near retirement age, which means this problem is going to get much worse over the next 5 years if immigration and other economic policies do not quickly shift. The current time to fill for physician vacancies runs between 7 and 11 months, and it's growing. This is actually before we factor in post-pandemic changes in the economy and the ongoing challenges of recruiting to Central Maine. We have to tap into new labor markets, especially immigrant workers, in order to be able to meet our mission. There are many other specifically hard to recruit positions like psychiatric providers for mental health services, medical assistants with experience, ISIT positions, as well as anyone with experience in health and data informatics and clinical operations experience. Rural areas are hardest hit by these labor shortages, especially primary care in rural areas, because primary care is the glue that holds the system together. Without workers, this will continue to deteriorate. The workforce will and can be greatly expanded by these 3 bills. Finally, I've personally watched people experience the agony of uncertainty created by this immigration structure we have now. It not only keeps them out of the workforce, but it has lasting impacts on health and well-being. It is trauma being inflicted by our policies. And secondly, diversity makes us smarter and better, more innovative through collective intelligence and varied perspectives, more able to meet the needs of an increasingly diverse population. There's no question these bills make sense and we need them. Thank you.
And thank you, Lori, for taking time away from your vacation to join us today. Next up, Ben Conniff, the co-founder and chief innovation officer of Luke's Lobster.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. Many of you may know Luke's Lobster touches virtually every part of the lobster industry. We buy directly from fishermen, we sell live, we process lobster, and we sell lobster products in restaurants, in grocery stores, and online. Everyone knows that lobster is iconic in Maine, but not as many people understand how critical our immigrant community is to the very survival of the lobster industry. As much as 70% of the lobster that's caught in Maine is processed, not sold live. And the people that do the skilled work of that processing are by and large from our immigrant communities. When the pandemic hit last year, when so many people quarantined safely at home, our immigrant community showed up to work at food processing facilities across the state to make sure that we had food on shelves in our grocery stores and that our food economy kept moving. These immigrant workers are so incredibly critical to Maine's food economy. Our natural resource economy would honestly not survive without them. And today, the shortage of workers in Maine is the #1 thing that's stifling growth in our food economy. So Senators Collins and King, Congressman Pingree, Congressman Golden, I know how much effort you all put into supporting the lobster industry. This is the next major step we need you to take to support the lobster industry, to support all those people who are behind the scenes, who make the lobster industry keep going. So please, I implore you to support the Durbin-Graham DREAM Act, the Crapo-Bennett Senate Companion Bill to the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, and co-sponsor the Secure Act. This is really the biggest thing that we can do to ensure the health of Maine's economy going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I'd like to turn it over now to Julie Marie Bickford, the Executive Director of the Maine Dairy Industry Association. Hi, Julie.
Hi, thank you very much. Farming, fishing, and forestry are Maine's heritage industries. The backbone of any society is the ability to feed itself, and Maine dairy farmers have been making sure that people are fed since cows were first introduced to this continent. Dairy farming is very labor intensive, and as improvements in education and career opportunities have abounded, fewer Maine people are available to work in our industry. The limited control that dairy farmers have over the prices they receive for their milk puts us at a competitive disadvantage to provide the level of wages and benefits to attract and retain those local workers, especially in this post-pandemic economy where all industries are competing with each other for a limited number of potential employees. If we are going to address problems like food insecurity in Maine and others, we must have farm workers. Some of our farms have attempted to solve this challenge by contracting with workers from outside the state, many of whom come to Maine from outside of the US. The experience has been very positive on the farm, but the process to find these workers is quite difficult. Passage of the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, as amended by the Bennett-Crapo Amendment, would expand the very successful H-2A program to cover full-time year-round workers. And that would be a tremendous help to Maine dairy farmers. It would formalize the practice of hiring non-US or immigrant workers and would provide technical assistance and support in that hiring process and in the workers' acclimatization to our communities. Growing up in the shadow of Loring Air Force Base in Aroostook County, I know firsthand of how the infusion of new people, cultures, and even languages can benefit our communities. We see the same potential benefits throughout Maine by passage of the Farm Worker Modernization Act and the various immigration proposals you've already heard today. We trust in our Maine delegation that you put the needs of Mainers first. And so we urge your passage in the Senate of this critical legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie Marie. I'll punt it over now to Jake Pearson of Pearson Nurseries and a member of American Hort.
Good afternoon. I wanted to, I'm here as a member, as Beth mentioned, of American Hort, and I own Pearson Nurseries down in Dayton, Maine. We are a proud member of the H-2A program. We have 6 folks from Jamaica that joined us last year. It has absolutely changed our business for the better. And I expect to continue to use the program for the foreseeable future and increase our use of it. Our industry in the state of Maine, the economic impact is about $125 million. That number could be increased, and with more work done on the on immigration, as we've been talking about all today, the Bennett-Crapo Act, the companion bill is very, very important for the H-2A program. H-2A is, as Julie just mentioned, is very complicated and complex needlessly. This spring, our folks were a month late in arriving because of a paperwork issue on the American side. Senator Collins' office was very helpful with us to get that problem fixed, but it could have been avoided very simply by a simpler and less complex system. Our industry is dependent on immigrant farm workers, both here and all over the country. So we urge that our folks in Congress work towards immigration reform and support the Crapo-Bennett companion bill to the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Next up, Eric Venturini of the Executive Director of the Maine Wild Blueberry Commission. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Beth, and thank you very much for that introduction. Maine's heritage wild blueberry farms and businesses comprise one of Maine's most iconic and economically important agricultural industries, and we are working towards a future of innovation and growth. However, a major prerequisite to the growth of this industry, to increasing the economic sustainability of wild blueberry farming, to empowering innovation, to supporting hundreds of Maine's multi-generational family wild blueberry farms, and a prerequisite to continuing to provide employment opportunities for Mainers, migrant workers, and new Mainers alike are common sense immigration solutions. And I quote Todd Merrill, president of Merrill Blueberry Farms, "It is getting increasingly more difficult to find the number of laborers we require to harvest, freeze, and pack wild blueberries. The biggest challenge for Merrill Blueberry Farms is housing migrant agricultural workers. If I can house them, I feel like I could get as many workers as I need." And I quote Paul Sweetland, manager of Coastal Blueberry Service in Union, Maine, "Common sense federal support for farm worker housing would go a long way towards helping me to find the labor I need to support a viable business." And I quote Josh Dixon, owner and operator of Foggy Hill Farm, "Labor is our single biggest challenge in agriculture. We have had to reduce the size and scope of our operation solely due to a lack of available labor." The Farm Workforce Modernization Act and its companion bill in the Senate proposes historic investments in farm worker housing while reducing employer costs. It helps us to address longstanding farm labor challenges by stabilizing labor and wages, incentivizing entry into the labor force, and simplifying the H-2A visa program, fulfilling a dire need for year-round agricultural labor. On behalf of the wild blueberry industry of Maine, I urge Senators Collins and King and the rest of our congressional delegation to support these bipartisan immigrant solutions that help farmers and farm workers alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, for joining us. I'd like to welcome now Greg Dougla, the Director of Government Affairs for Hospitality Maine.
Thank you, Beth. My name is Greg Dougla, and I am obviously the Director of Government Affairs for Hospitality Maine. We represent about 1,000 businesses, both in the restaurant and lodging fields. We are a proud partner in the Maine Business Immigration Coalition. We support reasonable and long-needed immigration reform from the visa workers we rely upon in our busy summer months to new Mainers who work in many facets of the hospitality industry, to the as yet known immigrant looking to find their piece of the American dream. We are in a severe labor shortage across many industries. And the only way to resolve that is by welcoming more people to our shores and helping to legitimize those already here. Hospitality businesses have curtailed hours, days of operation, and even modified business models to withstand this most recent labor shortage. It only makes sense to help facilitate immigration of fully vetted individuals to join us in our pursuits for success. We believe we should start with the dreamers and legitimize their rightful place in American society, followed by the many undocumented individuals who have toiled tirelessly, contributed greatly to our economic successes, including paying taxes for benefits that many may never receive. For these reasons, we support the DREAM Act and the SECURE Act. Let's reach for the most obvious issues and fix them on our way to comprehensive immigration reform. As the son and grandson of French-Canadian textile workers, I know more than most what the leg up and introduction to society can mean for young people and their offspring. This is a win-win situation if we have ever seen one. I also want to thank Senator Collins for all of her efforts on the H-2B visa program. We've been very lucky to have her over the last 20 years that it seemed to continue to sprout problems. So we ask our congressional delegations, specifically Senator Collins and King, to continue to do all they can to support these specific pieces of legislation and others that are sure to follow. I thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you, Greg. I'd like to welcome now Brian Langley, the chef and owner of the Union River Lobster Pot Restaurant up in Ellsworth and former state senator.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This reminds me of a lot of the sort of public hearings that we had when I served with my good friend, Senator Cates, who's also on the call. Did a lot of work on immigration. And one of the things I always asked as a committee chair, if when people were doing talks like this or public testimony, was not repeat what other people have said, but to add to what they've said. I'm sure that our legislative delegations Senator Collins, Representative Pingree, Congressman Golden, and Senator King have heard these conversations. I know they have because I've sent them the very same things that you have all sent and talked to them today. But I want to talk just very briefly about what it's like on this side as an owner and what I'm hearing from other owners who, run mom and pop places like mine, but now we're at grandma and grandpa. We've been doing this 35, 36 years. And what you're hearing is people are losing heart. One restaurant owner said he used to enjoy coming to work. Now he feels like he is reporting to duty. We bought jobs that we can't quit. We don't have enough staff to run at 100%. And the staff that we have it's already June and people have that August fatigue. We've been open ourselves at the Lobster Pot about a week, but others who've been open a little bit longer are feeling the same. Last night, we had guests drive from Bar Harbor to Ellsworth because every restaurant had a 2-hour wait because they're understaffed, and they drove 25 miles to find a place that they could eat in less than 2 hours. So I just want to stress that in order for us to run at 100%, in order for us to be vital supporters of the Maine economy, we need to have a vibrant and full work staff. The H-2B visa program in the Acadia region has been a lifesaver over years past to be able to do that. From folks that have, they're getting tired and feel like, if they're losing heart from running their own businesses, they'll be looking to leave. And frankly, I know 3 that are doing that, selling and saying the fight's just not worth it anymore. So I thought that might be a voice that hasn't been heard yet today. And thanks for listening very much.
Thank you for sharing that, Brian. And I'd like to now introduce Mufalo Cheatham, who is the Executive Director of the Maine Immigrant Rights Coalition.
Thank you, Beth. I'm here on behalf of the Maine Immigrant Rights Coalition and our 77 members of our coalition who have a commitment to advancing and defending the rights of immigrants here in Maine. Maine has seen a growth of immigrants in the last 10 years. And as you've heard, over 13,000 immigrant homeowners in Maine hold a collective housing worth of $4.8 billion. And I repeat, $4.8 billion. We also have seen that in our health care setting, 6.2% of health aides in Maine are foreign born. I'm a foreigner myself and coming from a country, Zambia. And I came here through the diversity lottery. I was given an opportunity to work. Immediately, I arrived in the United States. A lot of our Mainers who are coming, especially from away, don't have the opportunity to work. They don't have the opportunity that I had. Maine has almost 10,000 multicultural college and university students, many who are coming out of state, and some who are coming from out of the country. Like our very own Jade, who has had a very tough time staying in the United States. Today, MeBIC strongly believes that immigrants need to be developed intentionally and systematically. Therefore, Maine needs immigrants, and that means Maine needs federal immigration reform. We are leading a way towards a future of Maine that is built on principles of racial and social justice and economic security and inclusion. Today, we ask Senators King and Collins, it is time to take action and move forward towards bipartisan, common sense legislation that recognizes the vital contributions immigrants are making across Maine. Please support the Durban-Graham Dream Act, the Crop-Bennett Senate Companion Bill to the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, and co-sponsor the Secure Act, to ensure that Maine, as you've heard, can compete in the growing multicultural workforce economy. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce Heather Johnson, who is the Commissioner of Maine's Department of Economic and Community Development. Welcome, Commissioner Johnson.
Beth. As you've heard from many others before me today, Maine has a workforce shortage. The 10-year economic development strategy identifies that Maine needs 75,000 additional workers. Immigrants are critical to meeting that demand. Additionally, Maine needs to broaden the diversity of our population to be competitive in many of our key sectors. You've heard about some of those sectors already, so I'm going to shift and focus on the innovation economy. Multiple studies have shown the link between team diversity, innovation, and business bottom line. BCG Henderson Institute study of more than 1,700 companies shows that diversity increases the capacity for innovation by expanding the range of a company's ideas and options, leading to better financial performance. There's a clear correlation between diversity of management teams and an organization's overall level of innovation. For example, nearly half the revenue of companies that have more diverse leaderships comes from products and services launched in the last 3 years. These companies also have high EBIT margins, delivering 9 percentage points more than those with below average diversity on their management team. Our 10-year economic development strategy is built on the 2 pillars of talent and innovation. And quite simply, we can't achieve our goals of higher wages, higher productivity, and an adequate number of workers without the continued immigration and workforce participation of immigrants. We're looking forward to common sense policy that recognizes the vital contributions immigrants are making across the state of Maine.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. And now I'll turn it over to Dana Connors, the president of the Maine State Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Beth. My name is Dana Connors, president of the State Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure to be joining others here today on this very important issue. In my experience, rarely have I seen a chorus of such diverse voices speaking in harmony as one on this very important issue. And that's because each and every one of us recognizes the value, the need, and the impact that the immigrant community has on our state and our state's economy. Our history tells you why, but our future makes an even more compelling case. Time makes it very easy for us to either unintentionally forget or take for granted that most of us are children of immigrants. You add to that the fact that in the last 20 years, our population has been modest in growth, but the fact of the matter remains that what growth we've experienced has become because of the immigrant community. And when you think of where we are today and as we approach the future, the demographic decline speaks to the urgency of this very issue. With fewer and fewer births taking place and more and even more people leaving our workforce because of aging, the immigrant community is more important today and in our future than perhaps they have ever been. You know, it probably adds testimony to the study that I read and have shared with many that between 2000 and 2050, 83% of our growth in our workforce will come from the immigrant and immigrant community. That's the message for Maine as well. That's why we all recognize that our economy won't be what we want it to be without the immigrant. Our workforce needs won't be satisfied without the presence of our immigrant community. That's why I'm here today to add the voice of the Maine State Chamber of Commerce and the 5,000 businesses that collectively we represent. And as sensitive as we know that our delegation to be, and you've heard their voice earlier and their experience over time to this very issue, we also ask together that they take these policies before them very, very seriously, because in fact, Maine's future depends on it, It will allow, it will encourage our state to be able to meet the needs, whether it's workforce or whether it's our economy. I thank you for the opportunity, and it's a pleasure to be a part of you today.
Thank you, Dana. I'd now like to turn it over to Matt Marks, the President and CEO of the Associated General Contractors of Maine.
Thank you, Beth. Appreciate it. The Associated General Contractors of Maine is a statewide commercial trade association. And we're a diverse business organization with open shop, signatory contractors, employee-owned firms, and disadvantaged business enterprises all under one roof. Overall, Maine has an estimated of 4,800 construction firms where 95% are considered small businesses with fewer than 20 people. Our industry is still rebuilding from the 2009 recession, where we lost about 10,000 skilled workers. As we recover, we are finding the eligible pool of candidates to work in the industry has been reduced significantly as our K-12 population has changed drastically over the last 3 decades, not just here in Maine, but across New England. Today, more than 100,000 dreamers continue working in the construction industry across the United States. And while our country has failed to address a lack of year-round work visa programs for construction workers, it's imperative we ensure the many hardworking builders here today have a chance to continue to grow their careers in the United States. In a recent survey, 80% of contractors in the Northeast are struggling to find skilled workers. Right now in Maine, we have an estimated 30,000 construction workers. We'll need thousands more to meet the growing demand to build our infrastructure. With so many dreamers already applying their skills in the field and the potential of attracting future workers from around the world who can enter apprenticeships or contractor training academies, it makes sense for our country to support policies that keep our economy working and building blue-collar jobs here in Maine. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from Fortunat Mueller, who is president and co-founder of Revision Energy.
Thank you, Beth. Revision Energy is a Maine-based, employee-owned certified B Corp, and our mission is to help New England transition to a clean energy economy. Revision is currently about 290 co-owners strong, including many who grew up here in Maine, as well as very many Mainers by choice, individuals from around the country and the world who, like me, have affirmatively chosen to make America and Maine their home. I hope that it's obvious that transitioning to clean energy is an urgent and moral imperative, but it is also a massive economic opportunity for the state of Maine. By the end of this decade, by 2030, the state's clean energy industry will employ over 30,000 Mainers, which is a little more than double what we have today. Right now, our local employee-owned business has over 30 open positions we're trying to fill, which range from logistics and warehouse support to apprentice and master electricians, IT professionals, engineers, attorneys, and accountants. The clean energy transition represents a generational opportunity for our state's rural economy. And as other speakers today have noted, given the demographics of Maine's workforce, achieving these goals will absolutely require a thoughtful and comprehensive federal immigration policy. We're pleased to join our colleagues in MeBIC and ABIC here today in asking Senator Collins and Senator King to continue to support these 3 important bipartisan bills.
And now I'd like to welcome Curtis Piccard, President and CEO of the Retail Association of Maine.
Thank you, Beth. Maine's retailers employ more than 80,000 Mainers, making retail one of the largest employment sectors in Maine. We have high expectations for Maine's 10-year economic development strategy, especially the call for 75,000 additional workers to Maine's workforce. We have worked hard to help educate and train retail workers with our Rise Up Retail Industry Credentials through our Maine Business Education Partnership Program, with partnerships with Jobs for Maine's Graduates, Maine Adult Education, and the Maine Department of Labor. Immigrants are going to be a major piece of the solution. We strongly support bipartisan solutions and urge support for the Durbin-Graham DREAM Act, the Crapo-Bennett Senate Companion Bill to the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, and to co-sponsor the Secure Act. Thank you.
Thanks, Curtis. Now I'd like to turn it over to Lee Umphrey, who is President and CEO of Eastern Maine Development Corporation.
Hello, Beth. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, but you need to turn your camera on.
I did. It's not accepting it. It says the host has to release me. Okay, there we go. All right. I mean, everybody did it smoothly, but I did not, so I feel bad. What a great day. What a great group. It really reinforces what the real need is. First, I want to salute our congressional delegation for their willingness to be part of the solution and to help Maine businesses and Maine workers. I think having them part of this and having them here today is really important. Also, having state government here with Heather Johnson is an indication the support from the governor's office, and I think that's crucial too. But, you know, we started this discussion today with Barber Foods and the importance of that and workers. And I can tell you up here in Eastern and Northern Maine, it's a big challenge trying to keep the workforce up to date, not only the current people, but welcome the new Mainers. And I think working together with our community colleges and the university system, adult ed, I think we've got a system in place and a willingness to welcome new Mainers into our workforce because it's essential. It's essential for our vitality going forward. And I think one of the things I enjoyed listening to everybody today is there's pride in our immigrant past and there's real promise for our future. So thank you, Beth, and thank you, everybody. And I think with our congressional delegation support, Maine's going to become a better place for new Mainers.
Thank you, Lee. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce Roger Cates, attorney and former state senator who has worked on improving the lives of immigrants at the state legislative level, as has Brian Langley.
Thanks a lot, Beth. You know, I've been listening to this discussion, and one of the things that struck me was this is a conversation which just would not have taken place 10 years ago. I know that there are people on this call who are Republicans. I know there are people on this call who are Democrats, but the kind of consensus thinking just didn't exist more than a few years ago. And that's very, very exciting. I think for years we've heard the social justice part of this argument as beautifully articulated by Bishop Dealey earlier. But more and more it's become an economic necessity argument. And what I heard today was three main themes. We need workers, and we need workers. Particularly, that's true all over the country, but particularly here in Maine, as we are the oldest state in the country and getting older. When I was in the legislature with Senator Langley, I sponsored with his help some legislation, because there are some things we can do here on the state level, legislation to help make Maine a more welcoming place through expanding opportunities for English as a second language and job training. And those weren't successful at the beginning, but those are starting to pass. And it's happening because you couldn't have listened to today's presentation and not understand why it's happening. So one question that I always wondered was, why is this so hard? Why is this so hard to get to this place? And I think it's because, in part, so many Mainers, well-meaning Mainers, have felt, well, these people who are coming from outside our state and outside of our country are going to take the jobs from the finite pool of jobs which are available. And I think as we're all learning that's just not the accurate way to look at it. We're not talking about dividing up an existing pie. We're talking about expanding a pie and having everybody be able to share with larger pieces of an expanding pie. And the proof of that, I think, is in today's presentation and what we've heard. I also feel very lucky to have our congressional delegation that we do, the four people who we're talking to, all of whom I think get this, both from a social justice and an economic necessity perspective. So thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. And I hope that this is the year that good things are going to happen in Washington. Thanks.
Thank you, Roger. Very much appreciate the comments. And I'd like to thank everyone for participating. The stories, the comments, the the support for the bills is very, very important. Senators Collins and King, it's time to take action and move forward bipartisan, common sense legislation that recognizes the vital contribution of immigrants making it across Maine. Support for the DREAM Act, Senate companion bill for the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, and co-sponsoring the Secure Act will go a long way to making this all happen. And for folks watching, call our senators. Let them know you have been moving and moving common sense immigration reform solutions for everybody. Thank you all for coming. Have a great day.